The days that followed were filled with uncertainty and shadows. Azara could feel the weight of the kingdom's curse pressing in on her from all sides. The once bright halls of her castle had become silent, as if the walls themselves were mourning the loss of something precious. The servants moved quietly, their eyes downcast as though they, too, could sense the dark force that was drawing closer with each passing hour. Azara had always felt a connection to the land, but now it seemed different, distant, as if the very essence of Lyrath was slipping away from her, from them all. The trees in the forest outside the castle had become twisted, their once green leaves now tinged with a sickly yellow. The sky, forever shrouded in mist, seemed darker than it ever had before, the sun never fully breaking through the clouds. There was no warmth, no life. And yet in the midst of all this, there was Aemon. Though he was a stranger to her at first, his presence had become a strange comfort. Each day he remained by her side, quietly watching over her as she struggled to understand her place in the prophecy that seemed to grow more real with each passing day. She had never allowed anyone to be so close, but there was something about him that felt different. His calmness, his quiet strength, had started to wear away at the walls she had built around her heart. Despite her feelings, Azara couldn't ignore the fact that his presence was not without its complications. There were moments when his gaze lingered on her a little too long, when she could sense his attention shifting away from the kingdom's problems and toward her. And it was in those moments, when his eyes softened in a way that she didn't understand, that she felt the stirrings of something she had long denied. Longing. But Azara couldn't afford to feel anything. Not now, not when her kingdom was on the brink of destruction. The prophecy was clear. She could either break the curse, or she could watch Lyrith fade into nothingness. She knew what she had to do. But what if that meant sacrificing everything she had left? It was on a particularly cold evening, as the wind howled outside the castle walls, that Azara and Aemon found themselves in the garden once more. The fog was thick, curling around them like an invisible hand, pulling them deeper into the heart of the kingdom's magic. Azara stood at the edge of the garden, staring out into the endless mist. She could hear the faint whisper of the wind, as though it was calling her, urging her to move forward. But she didn't know where to go. "You've been quiet," Aemon said, his voice soft but steady as he approached her. "What's on your mind, princess?" Azara didn't turn to look at him right away. Instead, she watched the mist swirl around the garden, trying to find the words. "I don't know what's happening anymore," she said quietly. "I thought I understood my duty to this kingdom, but the more I learn, the more I feel like I'm losing control." Aemon stepped closer, his footsteps muffled by the soft earth beneath them. "You're not losing control, Azara. You're just realizing that control was never truly yours to begin with." Her heart skipped at the sound of her name on his lips. It was strange hearing it from him. She had always been the princess, the one everyone bowed to, the one everyone depended on. But with Aemon, it was as if she were just another person, just another soul struggling to make sense of this broken world. "I've always believed that if I could just make the right choices, if I could just find the right path, I could save Lyrith," Azara continued. "But I don't know if that's even possible anymore." Aemon's gaze softened as he reached out, gently touching her shoulder. "You can't save a kingdom by yourself. Even the strongest kings have had to rely on others to succeed." Azara turned to face him, her eyes searching his. "And you? Do you really think you can help me?" She asked the question softly, but there was an edge of desperation in her voice. The weight of everything she had to face was too much to bear alone. Aemon met her gaze, and for a moment, the world seemed to still around them. "I don't know if I can help you break the curse, Azara, but I do know that I won't leave you. I can't. Not after everything we've already faced together." She could see the sincerity in his eyes, and for a fleeting moment, she allowed herself to believe him. But doubt crept in, as it always did. She couldn't let herself be distracted by emotions, not when the kingdom's fate was so uncertain. "What about you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What do you want, Aemon? What are you truly after?" Aemon hesitated. For a moment, he seemed lost in his thoughts, his expression distant. I've lived my life bound to my past, he said slowly, as though the words were difficult for him to say. I've made choices I regret and I've hurt people I care about. But with you, Azara, I see a chance to atone for my past. To do something good, something right. Azara's heart ached at his words. She could see the pain in his eyes, the way he carried the weight of his own mistakes. She didn't know what it was, but something about his vulnerability made her feel connected to him. You don't have to do this for me, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. You've already done enough. Eamon's eyes met hers, his expression firm. It's not about what I've done, Azara. It's about what we do together. She was silent for a long moment, processing his words, and then something inside her shifted. For the first time in a long time, she felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, they could face this together. But as the moment lingered between them, a sudden roar echoed from the distance, cutting through the air like a sharp blade. Azara's heart skipped a beat and she spun around, her hand instinctively reaching for the dagger at her side. What was that? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. Eamon's face darkened. Not good. We need to move. Before she could react, he took her arm and guided her toward the castle. The fog seemed to thicken as they hurried inside, the distant roar growing louder with each passing second. Inside, the air was thick with tension. Servants moved quickly, gathering supplies while guards rushed to their posts. Something was wrong, something she couldn't quite explain. Azara's mind raced. The roar from the distance had been too powerful to ignore. It felt like the very earth was shaking beneath her feet. What's happening? She asked Eamon, her voice frantic now. Eamon's expression was grim. It's the curse. It's coming for you, Azara, whatever's left of it. It's waking up. The realization hit her like a wave. The kingdom's magic, the curse that had been dormant for so long, was finally stirring, and it was coming for her. You need to prepare, Eamon said, his voice hardening with urgency. Whatever happens next, you can't face it alone. Azara felt her pulse quicken, the weight of the situation crashing down on her. But as she looked into Eamon's eyes, she saw something: resolve. And for the first time in a long time, she realized that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone anymore. The kingdom of Lyrith was a land of endless twilight. The sun never fully rose, casting the world in a dim, soft glow. It was a kingdom caught between two worlds, the world of light and the world of shadow. And within this kingdom there was a castle that had stood for centuries, its stone walls now covered in moss and the weight of time. But the castle had seen more than just the passing of time. It had witnessed the rise and fall of kings, the fading of magic, and the slow decay of a once thriving realm, Princess Azara. The last heir to the throne wandered the quiet halls of the castle. She had spent her life in these rooms, surrounded by ancient tapestries and forgotten stories. The walls seemed to whisper to her, but she couldn't understand what they said. They were the voices of her ancestors, telling tales of power, of love, and of a curse that had haunted her family for generations. Azara had always felt the weight of the curse, the burden of knowing that her family's magic was tied to the land in a way that was both beautiful and destructive. The curse had taken her mother's life, and now it threatened to take her kingdom. Azara didn't want to be the one to bear this burden, but there was no escaping it. She was the last of her line, and the future of Lyrith rested on her shoulders. Yet, Azara had never felt more alone. She stepped onto the balcony, overlooking the fog-covered lands of her kingdom. The trees below were twisted, their branches reaching for the sky like skeletal hands. The fog hung thick, as if the land itself was suffocating, and the only sound was the soft wind that carried with it the scent of the dying forest. Azara knew that the kingdom was slowly decaying. The people spoke of it in hushed tones, afraid to face the truth. There was no hope left in their eyes, no spark of life. Even the animals in the forest had become restless, and strange creatures roamed the land at night. Azara's heart grew heavy as she thought of the people she had failed to protect. The door behind her creaked open, and she turned, startled. Standing in the doorway was a figure she didn't recognize, a tall, brooding man, his dark eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her heart race. "You must be the princess," the man said, his voice deep and rough, like the growl of a distant thunderstorm. "I have come to offer my services." Azara frowned, studying the stranger carefully. His clothes were simple but worn, his sword hanging loosely at his side. There was something dangerous about him, something that set her on edge. But she couldn't place it. "I don't need anyone's services," she replied sharply, her voice betraying the weariness she felt inside. "What is it that you want?" The man's gaze never wavered. "I am Lord Aemon, a knight. I know your kingdom is in trouble, and I am here to offer my help." Azara took a step back. She had heard rumors of wandering knights, of soldiers searching for meaning in a kingdom on the brink of collapse, but she hadn't expected one to appear in the castle itself. "And why should I trust you?" she asked, her voice cold. Aemon's expression softened for a moment, his gaze flickering with something like regret. "I don't expect you to trust me, princess, but I know that your kingdom is in danger. I have fought in many battles, seen many things, and I know when a land is dying." Azara crossed her arms, her mind racing. She could feel the weight of his words pressing down on her, but she didn't want to admit that he might be right. The truth was, she had been feeling the kingdom's slow death for years. But to hear it spoken aloud, to have someone confirm it, was too much. "Your kingdom is not the only thing dying, princess," Aemon continued, his voice low. "The magic of Lyrith is fading. The curse that has bound your family to this land is growing stronger, and soon there will be nothing left but shadows." Azara flinched at his words. She hadn't wanted to face it, but deep down she knew that he was right. The magic of Lyrith had always been tied to her family, and now, with her mother gone, it was weakening. The curse that had haunted her bloodline for generations was becoming more than just a tale told by the old people. It was becoming real. "I'm not afraid of the curse," Azara said, though the words tasted bitter in her mouth. "I will do whatever it takes to save this kingdom." Aemon raised an eyebrow, a glimmer of something unreadable in his gaze. "Then you must accept the truth of it, princess. You cannot break the curse alone. You need someone who understands the darkness that lies within it. Someone who can help you face what's to come." Azara's chest tightened. She had spent so long trying to ignore the truth of her bloodline, trying to push away the fear that lived in her heart. But now, standing before this stranger, the weight of it seemed too much to bear. "I don't need anyone's help," she said again, though this time the words sounded hollow. She had learned long ago to shut out those who offered to help. The burden of the crown had always been hers to carry alone. But as Aemon took a step closer, the air seemed to shift. There was a strange, undeniable pull between them, a force that Azara couldn't explain. She felt it in her chest, in her very soul. She wanted to turn away, to dismiss him as just another fool who thought he could save her, but something stopped her. Before she could speak, Aemon spoke again, his voice softer this time. "Then let me help you in another way, princess. If nothing else, allow me to protect you." Azara didn't answer at first. Instead, she looked out over the kingdom once more. The wind tugged at her hair, and for a brief moment, she thought she could see the stars through the thick clouds. She had always believed that the stars were the key to the magic, the light that could save Lyrith, but now they seemed so far away, like a dream she could never reach. "I twisted my ankle," she said quietly, looking down at her feet as if seeing them for the first time. Her legs ached from the long hours spent pacing the halls of the castle, and she had been too proud to admit how badly she needed rest. Aemon's eyes softened. "Can you walk?" Azara shook her head, the pain in her ankle flaring as she shifted her weight. She didn't want to admit it, but she couldn't bear to stay on her feet any longer. "I'll carry you," Aemon said, his voice gentle but firm. Azara's eyes snapped up to his. "What?" Aemon crouched down in front of her, offering his back. "I said I'll carry you. If you'll let me." Azara hesitated, her heart racing. It was a strange thing, asking for help, especially when she had always carried the weight of the kingdom on her own. But there was something about this man, something in his presence that made her feel lighter, if only for a moment. "If you carry me," she said slowly, "will you promise to stay?" Aemon's eyes locked onto hers, his expression unreadable. For a moment he said nothing. Then, with a quiet nod, he replied, "Only if you promise to face the truth, Princess. Whatever happens next, you cannot run from it." Azara felt a shiver run down her spine. The truth. She had been running from it for years. With a deep breath, she nodded. "I promise." And as Eamon lifted her into his arms, she realized that for the first time in a long time, she wasn't sure where the path would lead. But with him by her side, she was ready to find out.